home invasion yesterday, resulting in the death of a 19-year-old in the village of Ilion. So far, it looks as though this has been self-defense. State police will be making a statement later on today. We'll find out names and more information on the scenario. Stuff is leaking out. We won't know what's true and what isn't true until we get that press conference later on today. But here is the question. And I heard a lot of people talking about this yesterday. What would you do? Somebody's breaking into your house. You have access to a gun. And keep in mind, in this case, we don't know if the man, the homeowner, had the gun, if it was on his person, if it was in the house, or if in the wrestling match between the two of them, because it seemed like the homeowner did suffer from some injuries, if he was able to take the gun away from the home invader. We don't know yet. But the question would be, at what point is it legal for you to shoot and kill somebody in your house or on your property? Steve Hauck is former Lieutenant Steve Hauck of the UPD, and he's on the line right now. What can a homeowner do, Steve?
Well, whenever we talk about use of force, in this case would be deadly physical force, there's a standard that's been set by the courts. So first is it has to be reasonable. It has to be necessary, and it has to be without recklessness. So those are the three things we look at when we evaluate someone's use of force, even if it's, say, necessarily a police officer. It doesn't matter. It's the same standard for everyone. You talked earlier, I know, about Florida's stand your ground law.
Yeah.
New York doesn't have stand your ground, which means, and what that basically means is you have to, when confronted with force, you have to, by all means possible, avoid that. So you can't stay in the middle of the street and duke it out with someone legally. You have to try to avoid that force. The exception to that is in your own home. You don't have what they call the obligation to retreat. So you don't have to retreat from your own home. You do have the right to sort of stand your ground, for lack of a better phrase.
In New York? In New York, are you talking about?
Yes, in New York, absolutely. Okay. So that's the one exception to that is in your own home.
But that is, and now can I clarify here? That
Sure.
is in your own home, not necessarily on your property.
That's right.
So if there's somebody out there, they have a gun, and you're inside the house, they're outside the house. In order to shoot them, am I correct in saying you need them inside your house?
Well, that wouldn't be the only thing.
Okay.
But the other part, and I know there's a lot of different factors, and there's a lot of scenarios you can throw out. All of those, any scenario really, it has to be looked at with those standards. So you have to look and say, let's say, for instance, it meets two of the standards. That might not be enough because let's say, for instance, just a scenario, someone were to break into your home, they were to threaten you, you feel threatened, so it meets the reasonable, it maybe meet the necessary, but behind them is standing 5 innocent people. You can't just blast away because that would be reckless.
Right.
Because you could hit someone else. So there's a lot of things that can factor into that. But, if you were in your own home and you felt reasonably threatened and you felt that it was necessary to protect your life or someone else, you could, in that sort of basic scenario, use deadly physical force if it was necessary.
All right.
What about, now, again, there could be the factor of we don't know this yet, but if the weapon actually belonged to him or was registered to him, how would the law change then, depending on that?
You mean to the homeowner?
So to the homeowner, if it was, would it be the same thing if it wasn't his weapon or it wasn't registered to him?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't. I think it wouldn't matter because you could have it. And here's the other thing. I know it's talked about this, for lack of a better word, this suspect was armed. They don't know. I haven't heard if it was a gun or a knife or whatever the case may be. It doesn't necessarily mean they would have to be armed. In other words, you can certainly, we've seen many times, be seriously injured or killed with someone with their bare hands. So if someone is threatening you, they don't necessarily have to be armed. If it's reasonable to believe, geez, I might lose my life or I could seriously be injured, and you have the means to protect yourself using a deadly weapon,
yeah.
you could use that under authority in New York State without necessarily facing, say, a firearm or a knife or something like that.
All right. And in this case, the reports are that the man, when police arrived, was found dead. The 19-year-old was found dead in the driveway, right? Is that what what police
Sure.
are saying?
Yes.
So that's...
I would just have you to not make any presumptions
right.
that he, like, I know some people, he was shot outside. Listen, I've seen many people that are shot and then stagger for yards and 50 yards, 100 yards,
and then go down,
fall. So
yeah,
he could very easily have been shot in the home and then made his way outside.
Not to mention that we don't know. According to police, the man had a gun. The home invader had a gun. What we don't know is was the homeowner's gun? Is that how he was shot? Was he shot with the invader's gun? We don't know really any of those details yet until they release that today.
Sure, yeah, and I'm sure that's probably what's there's more than one set of eyes that generally would look at something like this. The police, I'm sure the district attorney's been involved in it, and so you have a lot of different people that look at it, and you're going to evaluate it, and they'll come to, I'm sure, a rightful conclusion, whatever that may be, as to whether it be charges or whether it's justified.
And I do want to ask one other question about this, which would be something a little more proactive for the future. And that is there are a lot of stories out there, and I'm not going to get into what we have heard went down yesterday and how this actually happened until police really release it. But we had the situation where the woman was making the night deposit the other day in Whitesboro, and she says that she was actually assaulted by a masked man, was hit with a blunt object. There she is. It's her job. We are hearing that this might be the case that similar that happened in Ilion. If you're in a position where you're handling money, whether it's for work or you have any sort of a routine, what advice can you give to people to? Because you don't know it, but somebody could be watching your patterns.
Yes, and the other hard part about something like ATMs or night deposits is you're distracted. Your head is down. You're punching in codes. You're getting keys out. So, for just a brief moment, you're not paying attention to your surroundings.
Right.
I think a good advice is if you're going to pull into an ATM or a night deposit is maybe drive around the building a couple of times. Make sure there's nobody sort of hiding, tucked in somewhere. I remember years ago I was at which was a Berkshire Bank, but right there on Genesee and Court Street, there's an ATM down in the back there.
Yeah.
And I remember years ago I pulled up there to use the ATM, and somebody came from around the back of the building and right in between my car and the ATM, and I jumped back, and he was just begging for money, but I jumped back because I do this for a living, and
you never know.
He was right. You don't know, right? And he was just hiding back there trying to beg for money, but he very easily could have tried to rob me too.
Yeah, that would. I don't know what I would do in that. I probably would hit the gas at that point. You just don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know if somebody has a gun today.
Exactly. You just don't know. And if it looks bad, I've said this many times. People have good senses. The problem, what they generally do is they ignore them. So it's the old, the hair on the back of your neck stands up. Don't ignore it. Drive away.
Yeah.
If it doesn't look right, drive away. Live to fight another day.
All right, very good, Lieutenant Hauck. Quickly, Andrew has...
no, I'm all set.
Oh, you are all set. Okay. I appreciate it. Having your expertise to be able to pipe in on this stuff is really important for us, and we thank you.
No problem at all.
All right, Lieutenant Steve Hauck.